From there, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is Rampage. The first episode aired on August 13th with 3 title matches on it. Between its premiere and the pay-per-view, they have aired 4 episodes in total. But for now, we'll mostly be talking about the first, since it was the premiere episode, and most of the other matches we've seen on Rampage were either already brought up in our discussions earlier, or we'll be bringing back later in the show when we talk about other topics. Now, so far, I think they've been knocking it out of the park. Not every match has been great, not every segment works, but I really like that they just get in and out of there in 1 hour. You need Dynamite to build up the angle so that something like this can work, but it's been really fun so far, and I'm thankful that I can recap a show and get it done in half the time it takes me to do Dynamite. So what do you think about Rampage and its format so far?
I'm loving it. I mean, I look forward to it every week, truly. Probably more than Dynamite. And I don't know if that's just the day it airs. Obviously, it airs on Friday. Generally, people like it better than Wednesdays for unknown reasons. But I think you nailed it in terms of it seems like the story is told on Dynamite that kind of helps set up the Rampage matches. And I think that's kind of a formula that's really worked so far. You know, it's kind of like, okay, Dynamite's obviously super fun to watch. There are great matches on Dynamite, but, you know, it seems like Rampage is kind of makes Dynamite stronger, and Dynamite also sets up Rampage perfectly. So I think it does what 2 shows should do for one company. They play off each other, and, you know, watching one doesn't mean that, you know, watching the other, you'll see the same stuff. You might see similar things, but it's kind of a different flavor or some kind of twist. So I'm really digging what they're doing with Rampage so far.
Yeah, they haven't turned into another darker elevation where you have almost its own separate cast. It's been Dynamite stuff for the most part that has been being played out in Rampage.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're doing a good job of so far giving you things that you haven't seen before. And I think with their, you know, they've got a big roster now, so I think they kind of have the flexibility to do that, and I think they're using it to its full advantage.
And speaking of using it to its full advantage, the first episode that aired on August 13th started with Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega. We'll talk a bit more in detail about the title picture in a bit, but it was a good match and a pretty sizable upset to start the new show with. You know, real people in with something they weren't expecting. We then had Miro facing off against Fuego del Sol. I actually didn't realize that this was technically a title match. I thought it was just for Fuego's contract. So if he did win, he would have been immediately the TNT champion without already being signed to AEW. You know, what if he doesn't sign the contract?
Right.
But that is...
Yeah, then he's going to throw it on the title in the trash on live TV or something. Yeah.
There we go. But it's a hypothetical we will not have to see play out because, you know, he gets a good start. You know, a few tornado DDTs from Fuego just rocks Miro up and down the ring. It's surprising how effective it is, and, you know, for a minute there you think, oh my gosh, did he find his secret weakness? But no, Miro just gives him a Samoan drop and a big kick that knocks him out cold. Miro then locks in the game over, and Fuego taps immediately. So yeah, like I said, it was unexpected for him to get that close to winning one of the titles, but with AEW's particular brand of squash matches, you know, he got a huge pop from the crowd, and they kept it short enough that the novelty of it didn't overstay its welcome. You know, what did you think about Miro and Fuego del Sol just having this weird, quick match here?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's about what you expected, maybe even with a little bonus Fuego del Sol offense. But ultimately, Miro has to win this. You know, I don't think you can build him up the way you're building him up to have, you know, you have to have whoever beats him be as dominant, if not more dominant than he is. So I think it was the right decision having him essentially squash Fuego del Sol, and Fuego del Sol got some offense in at the same time against a great opponent. So it made both of these guys look kind of the level that they're at right now. You know, not saying Miro can't drop, not saying Fuego del Sol can't rise, but at right now, it makes sense what happened.
And the thing is that if what happened afterwards didn't happen, I'd almost think that Tony Khan was really not interested in getting Fuego del Sol signed. Like, no one else has to go through freaking Miro just to get a contract. But, you know, after the match, you know, Miro relishing in his victory tears up a contract. So Fuego's didn't get his win, so he didn't get the contract. Everyone's sad. But then Tony Khan and Sammy Guevara come out and confirm that despite losing the match, he gets a contract and is now All Elite. A happy ending for all involved, I suppose, and a quick bit of fun, And it works on a shorter show like this. You want something like this, nice and poppy, for the 1 hour that you got.
Yeah, and it's it's a feel-good moment where a little bit of reality peeks through, where you get to see, almost a shoot reaction from Fuego del Sol. So it was a really nice moment. I was a big fan of it. And yeah, more wholesome moments in wrestling, please, because it's really nice.
And to end the episode, the main event was Britt Baker versus Red Velvet for the AEW Women's title. Now, whether or not anyone at the company expected this match to be good or not is immaterial, because they were building to Britt's big hometown match since before she got the title belt, and while it's unfortunate that she broke her wrist in the Nyla Rose match, they're going to soldier on and find a way to make it work. The answer, as it turned out to be, was to focus on mat work and submissions rather than big moves and flippy stuff, as it's all about the wrist. Velvet, by the way, gets a pretty raw deal here, as Baker is still the heel in this match, but she's the one getting booed all the time, even though she does the flashy moves like dropkicks and moonsaults. And it almost looked like she might be doing something interesting here, as she refuses to go after the wrist early on in the match, which could genuinely get the crowd to sympathize, but then she goes ahead and starts working it over. So it's basically a babyface acting like a jerk versus a heel who's also a jerk. The work was fine, but I couldn't really get into the match. It was just, I don't know. What did you think about the dynamic here?
I totally agree. I mean, it's something we've talked about before, where they're just kind of trying to figure out how to make Britt Baker. It's like there are two approaches. Other companies will be like, no, this isn't how we want you to feel. But AEW seems like they're kind of like, we don't know how to make you not like Britt Baker, and I think that's a common problem with heels becoming too entertaining, because then they get really popular and people start cheering for them. It's a problem Jericho has had to deal with throughout his career, where he's literally made his character the most boring dude on the roster just to not be cheered anymore as a heel. So it's something that's tricky, especially when you're in a wrestler's hometown. So the dynamics were a little odd in this match, but I think for the most part they worked through it. And I'm just a big fan of Britt Baker in general. I think she's great.
It's not a problem that MJF has.
Yeah, well, MJF, I mean, MJF.
Do you think he would get cheered in his hometown?
No, I wouldn't cheer MJF if he was from my town. That's for sure. But I think, MJF does it really well, because he's just extremely, I guess, rude. It would be the term for it.
I mean, he may even just bury his own hometown whenever they get to it.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I'm better than you, I'm successful despite you, essentially.
Well, as far as the match itself had a pretty interesting ending. Baker goes for the lockjaw, but guess what? Her cast won't fit in Velvet's mouth. And Velvet escapes only to start, taking apart Baker's cast. They go on for a bit, and then eventually Red Velvet goes for the lockjaw herself, only to discover that Baker has devised a cunning stratagem to overcome her own finisher. She just refuses to open her mouth. I mean, when you say it out loud, it seems kind of obvious, but you can't deny that clenching your jaw and shaking your head like a toddler makes it very hard to lock the move in.
Oh, for sure. And it makes it halfway as effective. And, I actually like that spot a lot. I thought it was really, it was funny, if anything, but I thought it was good strategy by Red Velvet.
Well, with Velvet unable to lock in the move, Baker reverses and tries to put her in the lockjaw, but Velvet grabs the injured arm and bashes it on the mat. Baker is hurt, but not out, as she reverses the move and uses her other hand for the lockjaw, which Velvet taps out to immediately. I guess she didn't catch on to how Baker avoided the move just a minute prior, but regardless, Britt Baker has retained her title and is still AEW Women's Champion, to the utter delight of the Pittsburgh audience. I guess you could call this another happy ending?
Yeah, I guess so. It's so hard to tell with Britt Baker. But I guess, wrestler winning in their hometown, I guess that's a positive, right?
I mean, I guess so. But Baker's not done with Velvet, however, as she starts attacking her after the match, and then Chris Statlander runs in to lay her out, to the boos of the crowd, who I guess wanted to see Baker curb stomp Red Velvet onto the title belt. Okay. But they do ultimately get their wish, as Chris Statlander is attacked by none other than Jamie Hayter, who, as far as I can tell, had 2 matches on Dynamite in 2019 and is back as the extra security that Britt Baker alluded to a few weeks ago. With Statlander out of the picture, Baker drags Velvet over to the belt and stomps her head into it as the first episode Rampage comes to an end. Again, happy ending?
Yeah. Yeah, these endings are a little bit interesting. Yeah, Jamie Hayter, I wasn't super familiar with before this show. But yeah, I guess the heel getting more muscle is good. I don't know.
Yeah, and as far as Rampage and this episode specifically, even with the big titles being fought on the show and with so many things happening, it still kind of felt like a B show. I think the fact that they tried to make it anything but a B show is what made that first episode feel a little bit awkward. And I think the episodes we've gotten since then have found the right balance between light and breezy fun and important can't miss action. I prefer it to have its own identity than trying to ape Dynamite, trying to fit that into an entire hour. But I mean, they've had a few weeks to iron out the kinks, and so far I think it's been a really good addition to the AEW brand, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think it makes a lot more sense having it being its own thing with its own kind of tone, not that the tone can't be consistent, but you know what I mean. It's Friday, people just want to relax. I really do think that has to do with it, the day of the week. I mean, I think people want kind of a not less engaging, but you can kind of just shut your brain off and watch good wrestling, right? Whereas Wednesday's the more kind of story dense, kind of
viscerally
episode.
satisfying.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they definitely hit their stride in subsequent episodes. But yeah, it's got its own cool little vibe, which I'm really digging, and I really look forward to it every week, honestly.